hit 1 million and you've made it, right? That's the deal, isn't it? Like, you're rich, you're done, you can kind of stop. Interestingly, I had a bloke sit across from me last year who had literally just crossed that threshold. He was like this properly diligent, careful saver, had done everything right for 30 odd years. And he was sitting in the chair and he leans right back and he breathes out and he goes, right, that's it. I'm a millionaire on paper. I can retire now, can't I? And this is probably the worst part of my job, because I had to tell him that he was about halfway. Not halfway to rich, halfway to the retirement that he'd actually pictured in his head. The one with the decent car on the drive, the 2 holidays, the going out for dinner without doing kind of mental arithmetic into your head on the way to the table. That one, that retirement is closer to 2 million. And I know exactly how that sounds. £1 million is not enough. Look, for most of us, that number, that big landmark, has been the definition, the very core component of wealth since we were all kids, right? The game shows, the films, the whole idea of kind of making it. And the problem is that nobody's gone back and updated that figure since like 1995. The million never moved. The world, and the world that we live in today, did. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you to panic about the number. I'm just going to show you the maths, because it's the maths that changes your mind on this, not anything that this idiot says on the internet, essentially. And there's one number buried in all of this, a boring 3% that quietly doubles what you need while you're sat there doing absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, the opposite, you're doing really well. So let's start with how you actually work out the target in the first place, right? Because there's a rule of thumb that the whole industry, every YouTube video you've ever watched, leans on, and it is dead simple, okay? The 4% rule. If your money's invested sensibly, spread across the world stock market with maybe a little bit of bonds or other assets in there as well, you can roughly take out about 4% of your pot in your first year. Give yourself a small pay rise each year thereafter to keep up with inflation and prices, and the pot should outlast you over 30 years. Now, it is an incredibly blunt tool, and you will hear a million different versions of this in a million different videos that you might watch. But do you know what? In all my experience over the years, it's a blunt tool that kind of works. It doesn't have enough nuance, though, to take into account your tax position or the years that you spend a bit more or the years that you spend a bit less. But do you know what? As a back of an envelope calculation, it is truly hard to beat. And it flips into something that you can use right now today to get yourself going. Whatever income you want in retirement, times it by 25, and literally that is the whole sum. That's your target. That is it. So think about that now. Do yours right now. Whatever number is in your head for the life that you want, times it by 25, and just hold on to it into your head for now. And you want to remember it, because we're going to come back to it at the end of this video. And the reality is, I guarantee you it's going to have moved. Right, so let's run £1 million through this whole thing. So £1 million, 4%, 40 grand a year. Well done us, great maths. The question is though, is 40 grand enough, right? The numbers are simple, but the question is £40,000 enough? Now, if you want a kind of quiet, careful version of retirement, then yes, honestly, it probably is. Genuinely. Bills paid, roof over your head, a week somewhere warm once a year if you're kind of sensible about it. But that's not why you clicked this video, is it? Because nobody has ever sat down opposite me and asked me for a conservative, careful retirement. They want the decent car. They want the 2 holidays. They want to spoil the grandkids without checking the bank balance first. Going out for dinner and just ordering, right? Not thinking about it. And that life has a price. And let me tell you, it more often than not is not 40 grand a year. So let's take a look at what that type of lifestyle might cost you. Well, the people who actually measure and sort all this sort of stuff out is the PLSA, the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association, which is always easy for me to say. What they do is they publish what they call the retirement living standards every single year, which is just basically the kind of real cost of 3 different types of retirement, 3 different levels of retirement in this country. So their comfortable tier, that's the one with the car and the holidays all loaded into it, comes out at around £43,000 a year for one person and around £59,000 for a couple. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to take a really broad round figure of 50 grand. Really easy maths. So I'm just going to say that I want £50,000. Now, that's deliberately under what a couple actually needs to have that, but I'd rather be a bit kinder than too dramatic. So we're just going to go with £50,000 a year times by 25, and the pot that you need is 1.25 million. £1.25 million. Here's the key point. That's what you need today, as if I'm waking up and retiring tomorrow morning. And yes, okay, look, before you shout it at the screen, the state pension, let's talk about that. It's real. It's about 12 grand a head, roughly, at the minute. And it does obviously take out a chunk of that income that your own pot has to carry, okay? But here's the key thing, and this is why I don't want to focus too much into it in this video. You probably watching this won't see a penny of it until you're 67, 68. So if you're planning to finish at 60, for example, the first 7 or 8 years, which are typically the most expensive ones, by the way, the ones where you're actually well enough to be doing the things you retired to actually do, your pot is carrying the whole thing on its own. And this is often the stretch that breaks financial plans. But here's where nearly every plan that I watch someone build for themselves quietly falls apart. It's not the state pension. It's that everything that I've just done assumes that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and retire. The reality is when you come up with these plans, you're not. You're maybe 10, 15, 20 years from the retirement figure. So this is really, really important to think about. I always think about inflation, which of course is the increase in the cost of living each year, as like a slow puncture in your car. You know that when a tire in your car is losing air properly, slowly for like weeks at a time and you don't even notice a thing. Like the car drives fine, looks fine, right up until the morning when you walk out to your car and it's flat completely on a driveway and you're not going anywhere. Nothing dramatic ever happened. It was just leaking the whole time and you didn't really realize. That is what is happening to your number while you're feeling kind of completely on top of it and proud of yourself that you've actually put that number in place to start off with. And let me tell you, if 3% a year sounds too small to kind of bother with factoring in, go and ask your dad or your mum or whoever what he paid for his first house, right? Same house, same street. That's this number doing its work quietly in the background for 30 years. Inflation is a killer. Think about, what do they always say, like the price of Freddos or the price of a pint of beer or a tank of petrol. It is crazy how much inflation affects all of that. So 50 grand, that 50 grand life that I said that I wanted today, let's go with that. If prices climb at 3% a year, which to be honest with you is kind of mild with anything that we've lived through lately, then in 10 years, that exact same life costs £67,000 a year. In 15, it's 78,000. In 20 years, 90 grand a year, almost double, right? Just to live the same way that £50,000 would give you right now. Same house, same holiday, same Tuesday, nearly double the number that you need to hit it. And to be honest with you, you probably already spotted the trap before I've said it. You can't take the income you want today and times it by 25. Because by the time that you get there, today's income doesn't buy today in the future's life. You've got to run the future number, the one with the 3% inflation assumption already baked into it. So let's look at a real couple. Say you're 45 and you want to finish at 60, right? So that's 15 years. And you want £50,000 a year to retire. So essentially forward-proofing that for what you want at retirement in 15 years. 15 years of 3% drags that income required up to £78,000 a year. Times it by 25, 1.95 million. Call it 2 million. 1.95 million. Okay? Really think about that. Now, look, I'm not here to scaremonger or scare you or sell you into anything. It's the exact same rule. Everyone quotes the 4% rule. You just run forwards properly instead of it being frozen in today's money. The finish line hasn't moved because somebody's moved it. It's just drifting away from you the whole entire time. 3% a year. While the number in your head, that million, that glory, stayed exactly where it was. And that bloke that I mentioned, the guy with £1 million, leaning back in his chair, all relieved, I showed him these sums and I just watched his whole face just kind of drop, right? And he goes, so what you're telling me is I'm only halfway. And I was like, well, yeah, pretty much on the basis of it being binary, then pretty much yes. But here's the bit that I couldn't get him to hear or understand for literally about half an hour. And it's the bit that I think actually matters most. So what I want you to do is really, really focus in on this. So hopefully you can get it faster than he did. The exact same force that just doubled your target, inflation, is also the one working for you as well. Compounding. The reason your number balloons over 15 years is that prices grow on top of prices, right? It's like that snowball. But your money does the identical thing, often, to be honest with you, only faster. If inflation is running at 3%, let's say, a global index fund, which is just exposure to the asset class of equities, it's just one pot that you can put your money into that's spread across thousands of tiny slices of the world's biggest companies all at once, has historically returned more like 7 or 8% in nominal returns. So yes, look, the cost of living is climbing, but hopefully your return is climbing even faster than that, which means, and this is the part that should let your shoulders drop a little bit with a little bit less stress. You know, you don't need to save £2 million, right? You don't need to kind of throw into a bank account £2 million worth of money. No one's shoveling £2 million in cash into an account somewhere. That's not how this works. Across 30 years at those sorts of returns, less than a third of that final pot, that final money, whatever figure it is that you want, what you actually do at the end, is money that you actually have to put in. The rest of it, the majority of it, is money that your money made while you were at work or asleep or on holiday, not thinking about it at all. That's the beauty of compounding. So there are only two things that you really have to get right to understand this whole thing. One is how much is going in every month, okay? And I see this consistently in my one-to-one works that I do. People will stare at that terrifying number for years, right? And completely ignore the monthly habit, the mechanism, which is the only part of the whole thing they can actually control. It's the one dial that's in their hand that they just won't touch. So number two is where that money lives. You want it inside tax-free vehicles, tax-free accounts. So in the UK, that's ISAs and pensions. And you want it properly in the market, invested for you. You don't need to necessarily be all in the stock market. Again, you can have a blend of stocks and bonds and property, but not sat in cash and working hard for you in productive assets. Because the key thing is also as well, the tax drag is all the little bits taken out of your gains along the way, like some little plankton kind of like quietly eating a whole whale. That will quietly bleed you dry. That will take away so much of your gain over 30 years. Now, if you get those two right, the amounts, the place, and compounding will kind of carry everything else, which is eventually what I got that guy to see. Because the reality is that he wasn't halfway. He was 15 years early with £1 million already working for him. And £1 million left alone for 15 years at 7% isn't a million anymore. It's the best part of 2.75 million before he's even added another penny. He didn't need to like double his savings. He just got so fixated on that binary number that he'd have to hit that he stopped believing that his pot was kind of still going, essentially. Now, all of that being said, £1 million in retirement will be sufficient to meet the vast majority of people's expectations. I'm not denying that that is a phenomenally large amount of money. And the good news is that genuinely you can build and grow that £1 million really easily by just using your regular salary, your income. So to do that, I really think that you should watch this video here next, because I am going to lay out exactly how you can build a £1 million pot by just using your income and some repeatable, scalable, consistent actions that don't mean that you have to sacrifice your life today. So give it a click and I'll see you there.